Okay, Laurel. We've just finished halving, and I said that was going to lead on to division. But seeing how hard some of the other classes found doing written division from home without all the resources in school and all of the small groups and stuff, we're going to pause the division for now, and we're going to come back to when you're back in school and when Mrs. Sperry can do it with you more clearly with lots of nice equipment and small groups. We're going to move on to time. Time should be a nice unit. Time's a unit that you should have everything in the house that you need. You should have clocks and calendars and diaries um, and stopwatches and all those sorts of things that you need because they're all on phones, they're all on computers and tablets, which you're watching this on, so that must exist. And you probably have a calendar somewhere in your house and things like that. So this should be a nice one to do remotely. So today we're going to learn to understand how days, months, and years are related. Okay, here's a picture of a calendar. We can see how many days there are in this year. We can see how many months there are in this year. We can see how many, that's it. Yeah, we can see how many days there are in a week. We can see how many weeks there are in a month. So here's this poem. It's a poem that all grown-ups seem to use when they're trying to remember how many days there are in each of the months of the year. 30 days have something, 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 and something. All the rest have 31 except alone that has 28 days clear and 29 each leap year. I'll leave it a second. If you know this poem, just read it through to yourself, but with the right words in there. Okay, I'll assume you've done that. This is another diagram. We are going to come back to that and fill in the blanks in a minute, so don't worry if you didn't know it. I want to show you this first. This is another diagram that does exactly the same thing. So these are the months in order, and if the month is a large tall bar, black bar, then it's got 31 days. If it's a smaller green bar, it's got 30 days, and if it's this much smaller yellow bar, well, it's got 28 or 29 days because it's February, and February is a pain. So let's have a look at this. Let's fill in this diagram along the bottom first. So January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. I'm going to assume you know the months of the year in order. You've been doing that since year one. If you don't know the months of the year in order, that is something which you need to learn off by heart very, very quickly, please, because it's important. So, what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that January, March, May, July, August, October, and December have all got 31 days in them. It tells us that April, June, September, and November have only got 30 days, and that February has got even less than that. So, from that, we can fill in this poem. Actually, let's fill in the number down the side first, and we'll come back to the poem. So, January is a big bar, so it's 31. February is that weird short bar, it's 28 or 29, and I'll come back to that in a minute. March is 31. April is only 30. May is 31. June is only 30. July is 31. August is 31. September is only 30. October is 31. November is only 30. And December is 31. Now, this poem is weird because it doesn't do it in the right order. It does it in the right order to rhyme and sound good, not the order the months are in the year. Because the first bit lists the months that kind of break the rules. It basically assumes that everything's 31, and then it tells you the 5 months that break that rule. The 5 months that break the rule, February, but it really breaks the rule. And then it's April, June, September, and November. But in the poem, they decide to do 30 days has September, they put that first, I think because of how long the word is. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. Now, really, September should be there, but I think because it's a longer word, they've moved it forwards. All the rest have 31, except February alone has 28 days clear and 29 days each leap year. I would be very surprised if you asked any adult how they can remember how many days there are in each month of the year, and they don't do it by either saying that poem or saying something similar. They could be wrong. You may ask grown-ups around you and they may have a completely different way of doing it, which is brilliant. And if they can teach that one to you, wonderful. But the vast majority of grown-ups I know, if I ask them how many days there are in this particular month, you can see them saying that poem in their head. You can almost hear it coming out. So I think that's the best way of learning it. But you can have this diagram in front of you when you're doing this work if you need to. Let's just quickly talk about February and why February is a pain. Well, a year is how long it takes the Earth to go around the Sun. This is not in scale. The Earth is much, much smaller than that. So it spends a year zooming around the Sun. And we say, oh, that's brilliant. 1 year is 365 days. The problem is 1 year is not 365 days. The Earth is just a little bit too slow for that. If it's doing a race, if it's doing a lap every year, it doesn't quite make it. It actually takes 365 days and a quarter. Now, you can't have a quarter of a day because a day is how long it takes for the planet, the Earth, to spin round. And once a year, it doesn't only spin round a quarter, it does the whole thing. What this means is it just doesn't fit, doesn't work. And we've had to kind of fudge it to make it work. And what we've done is we've said, well, let's save up these quarters of the year. And every 4 years, we'll just whack that day back into the year. And where should we stick it? Well, let's stick it in February because it's got less than everybody else anyway. So every 4 years, February gets an extra day made up of all those little bits that we were saving up. It does mean if your birthday's on the 29th of February, you only get a birthday every 4 years. Or you just pretend and use 1 days around it. So here are your questions. This is your level 1, your first set of questions. These are sometimes, always, never questions. You have to answer these with the word sometimes, always, or never. Each question is a fact, but the fact might be wrong, it might be right, or it might sometimes be right. So you need to look at them. Months with the same number of days are never next to each other. Is that sometimes true? Sometimes months with different numbers of days aren't next to each other. Is it always true? It is always true that months with the same number of days are not next to each other? Or is it never true? Are they always next to each other? And that's just plain wrong. The next fact, December and January have the same number of days. Do they have the same number of days on some years and it's sometimes true? Do they always have the same number of days and it's always true? Or do they never have the same number of days and it's never true? More months have 31 days than do not. Is that sometimes true? Some years that's true, but other years it's not. Is it always true? There are always more months with 31 days than there are ones that don't have 31 days. Or is it never true? Are the 31 days always outnumbered by the others? And then question 4, if you add the days in 2 consecutive months, that means 2 months that are next to each other. So January and February, or February and March, or March and April, or April and May, that the sum of those days will always be odd. So if we go back to this picture of a calendar at the beginning of the year, if you take 2 months that are next to each other and add up all of the days in those months, blah, 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 all the way across, will that always be an odd number? Will it sometimes be an odd number, but only when you choose certain months? Will it always be an odd number, or will it never be an odd number? By the way, you haven't got to literally count on that calendar. You could go back to this and basically just pick 2 months. Let's rub out those. Whoops, wrong button. Let's just rub these out. You could work it out by picking 2 months and adding them up. Is that odd? Pick 2 months and add them up. Is that odd? Pick 2 months and add them up. Is it odd always? Pick 2 months and add it up. Is that odd? That's how I probably would do it. It's quicker. But you could go back to the calendar if you want. Oops, I want to zoom. Two extension problems. So two problems you can do if you get through that first bit of work quite quickly and you want to do some more, but don't worry about it if you don't have to. It will involve finding old calendars on the internet, so though I might try and find one and attach it to this assignment. Terry's brother was born on the 29th of February 2016. Terry said 29th, notice that, of February 2016. Terry said his brother would celebrate his first birthday on the 29th of February 2020, so last year would have been his first birthday. What made Terry say this? And why was he correct? So I want a worded answer. I'm thinking of 2 consecutive months. The sum of the days is 62 days. Find all the possibilities for these pairs of consecutive months I could be thinking of. So to answer this question, you go back, I've done it again. You go back to this list and you say, where can I find 2 months that are touching each other that add up to 62? And you list all the possibilities, if there is more than one. Okay, so main work, extension work. Any questions? Just give one of your teachers a message.